So I'm 25. Just a couple of months ago, I got laid off.
Get slacks from my entire team. Are we getting laid off?
Amazon laid off 30,000 people today. The narrative is that this is about AI replacing jobs. The reality is very different, and I want to be really precise about it because it gets at corporate structure and finance and not really at AI in the way you think. So when people think AI layoffs, they think the robots are doing the jobs now, and therefore we are having layoffs. No, the people who are doing the jobs are more stressed if they're still at Amazon, but the AI automation story isn't actually hitting those jobs. What is hitting those jobs and is related to AI is the cost of chips. So NVIDIA sells chips to everyone, GPUs. Those chips are how we power AI, and none of the major cloud providers can get enough chips right now. Microsoft can't, Google can't. Google's in an easier spot. They have TPUs, and Amazon definitely can't. In fact, people don't know this, but AWS has a roughly 25% burning backlog on GPUs. In other words, they are missing out on revenue because companies are begging for more compute from AWS that they can't fulfill because they can't buy GPUs because they only had so much budgeted to buy GPUs. And so, yes, the layoffs are related to AI, but in this case, it is burning corporate demand for GPU chips that is hitting the capital expenditure budget of Amazon so hard that they need to find other ways to reduce fixed costs so they can meet the expectations of Wall Street around the overall margins of the business. And you might be like, well, why does that matter? They're all like billion-dollar companies. In Amazon's case, their margins have always been notoriously thin everywhere except AWS. Retail is like a ridiculously thin business. But the AWS margins have been really good. And so the street, for better or worse, expects them to continue growing the high margin business at a good clip. The street was not happy with their 18% year over year growth rate this quarter. And the street is looking for them to pick that growth rate back up, which they cannot do if they cannot buy more chips. And they cannot buy more chips without destroying their margin unless they can cut costs other places. And chips are so expensive that the only way they can cut costs is by going after jobs or fixed costs or salaries. And that is what is happening. And so really, when you read this, instead of reading this as a guidebook to where AI is automating, read it as a guidebook to the things that Amazon finds least painful to cut when they have to trade talent for GPUs in order to maintain their margins. So these were very hard discussions, and the places they cut are places that I think they are strategically not as invested in. And that is the way I read it. None of this does anything to make people who got fired today feel better. And so I don't want to pretend it does. If you got let go from Amazon, that really sucks. And this doesn't fix it. And I hope you find a role soon. There is absolutely life after Amazon. I found life after Amazon. It does happen.
The U.S. labor market lost 600,000 jobs in January. This is an absolutely insane increase from last year. The U.S. lost 1.1 million jobs for the total year, which is already the most since COVID. If you want to be prepared for layoffs, here are some signs that you might want to be aware of. An obvious early sign is a hiring freeze. The company can't afford to hire any new people. If the leaders start talking about operational efficiency and making do with less, or even just a straight up C-suite change. New executives want to show impact, and layoffs are one of the easiest ways to do that. Also in tandem with the hiring freeze, budget cuts are common. Less promotions, less perks, less of everything really. When people start leaving and they're not backfilled, company reorgs that don't make sense. If your team all of a sudden really cares about documentation, that could be another sign. The best way to be prepared is honestly just have the skills for another job always ready. Keep your LinkedIn and resume updated. Always be interviewing, even if only casually. Have an emergency fund of a couple months. And always negotiate your severance.
Good news! Amazon announced they will lay off 16,000 people. UPS announced they will lay off 30,000 people. Meta announced they will lay off 1,000 people. Pinterest announced they will lay off 15% of its workforce. Citigroup is expected to lay off 1,000 people. And I know what you're thinking. What is the good news part of this good news, perchance? Well, you asked, and I shall provide it to you now. All of these were announced this January, the very first month of 2026. So quintessentially speaking, if you are studying with the hopes of working in healthcare, education, tech, engineering, business, finance, science, law, creative arts, just stop wasting your time. Because the only jobs available to you will be Palantir agent, Lockheed Martin agent, Raytheon agent, BlackRock agent, crypto scammer, meme coin trader, angel investor, venture capitalist, Twitch streamer.
One thing I was unprepared for in the professional world was how they do layoffs. There was this one guy who had worked at the company for 8 years. He had moved closer to the office to cut down his commute. He never talked bad about the company, and you could tell that this company was his life. One day, he gets a call from his boss who he had worked with for 8 years, and he joins a Zoom. Immediately, HR joins the call, and he knows what's going down. After that call, laid off, he goes back to his desk, picks up all his stuff, doesn't even say anything to anyone, doesn't say bye. I don't blame him though, he's probably in so much shock. Gathers all of his stuff, walks out the door. Just like that, 8 years and gone. That's how layoffs happen. And the craziest part was no one around me looked surprised because it's so normalized. It's just another day in the life. And even the people who had known this guy for 4 or 5 years weren't surprised. If you ever think a company cares about you, just know they don't. They're gonna do what's in their best interests, and so should you. Follow for more. And then it's the CEO explaining to me about how our Q4 performance was poor and how he would like personally make sure that we would be fine, whatever. Like, you know, typical, like, I'm the CEO, just got laid off speech. And then the Zoom ended. Mind you, I was online, I joined for like a minute, and then immediately I get logged out of Slack and all my Google Calendar, email, and everything. So I'm kind of freaking out right now. I'm pretty sure I just got laid off. I'm trying to sign in. All my logins aren't working, so I have no way to communicate with anyone on my team, my boss.
The only thing that college/university has taught me is how to move on and detach. Because I can study all week for a test and get a 23%, true story, and I'll look at the mark and just go, damn, there's only forward now. There's nothing I can do about this. I've translated that to every single part of my life now. And it's kind of good, but I feel like I would like to learn it another way. Like, it is what it is, but like I would like that to not affect my GPA in any way. But you know, you win some, you lose some. It's just the way it is.
Listen, it's a global pandemic. Okay, there's just too much uncertainty around the business, so we have to lay you off. I think that's understandable. No?
No, it's not understandable at all.
Well, I just think you're being very unreasonable, okay? So I will be on my boat. Do not contact me. All right, good news. The uncertainty of the pandemic is over.
That is great news.
Bad news, we are now certain that we did overhire, and we're going to have to fire a bunch of you guys. All right, listen. The business just ain't doing great, okay? Pandemic, ever heard of it? So we're going to have to lay you guys off. All right, hey, positive update. Business is doing better.
Yay!
And that is exactly why we need to lay a bunch of you off. All right, we're unfortunately going to have to lay a bunch of you guys off because we're making heavy investments in AI.
What does it even do?
Nothing really.
The US economy just got a huge announcement of layoffs across a whole bunch of different companies. And now this isn't just America, this is affecting global employment, and whether it's AI or margin crunch from tariffs or something else entirely, right? US government is laying off 307,000 people, UPS is laying off 78,000 people, Amazon 30,000, Intel 25,000, Nissan 20,000, Nestle 16,000, Microsoft 15,000, Bosch 13,000, Dell 12,000, Verizon 13,000, Accenture 11,000, Ford 11,000, Microsoft 7,000, PwC 5,600, Salesforce 4,000, IBM 2,700, American Airlines 2,700, Paramount 2,000, Target 1,800, GM General Motors 1,500 motors 1,500 employees, Kroger 1,000 employees, Meta 1,000 employees, and that's not even all of them. That's a lot. That's a lot of firings coming our way.